Your story changes the moment you change, because every transformation that happens in your outer world first begins as a quiet shift inside your inner world, a shift so subtle that most people overlook it, yet so powerful that it can alter the entire course of your life. And the truth is, nothing in your circumstances, your environment, your habits, or your opportunities will evolve until you decide to evolve from the inside out, because everything you experience is filtered through who you believe you are, what you believe you can do, and what you believe you deserve. And when those remain small, your life remains small. But the moment you challenge your own narrative, the moment you question the limitations you've accepted, everything begins to move in a new direction, slowly at first, then all at once. Change doesn't begin with massive action or dramatic moments. It begins in silence. It begins in that private moment where you finally say to yourself, I can't keep living like this. And that sentence becomes the spark of a new identity, a new mindset, a new path forward. Because once you recognize that the person you've been is no longer the person you want to continue being, you begin to shift your actions. And once your actions shift, your story naturally follows. But the hard truth is that most people wait for their life to change before they change. They wait for a miracle, a sign, a breakthrough, a new chance. But breakthroughs don't arrive for the unprepared. They arrive for the person who is already working, already becoming stronger, already building the foundation long before anyone else can see the results. And once you can war eternally, your world starts bending to match your decision, because life always reflects who you choose to be, not who you wish to be. When you change what you tolerate, your story changes. When you change what you chase, your story changes. When you change how you speak to yourself, your story changes, because every action you take is built on your self-concept. And most people fail not because they lack talent, but because they are still operating from an outdated identity, an identity built from fear, insecurity, past failures, and the opinions of people who never understood their potential in the first place. And until you break that identity, you remain stuck in a cycle that repeats again and again. The moment you choose to rise, everything that once felt heavy begins to feel possible, not because the world became easier, but because you became stronger, you became more focused, more intentional, more aware of who you must become to build the life you envision. And that is the power of internal transformation. It turns confusion into clarity, hesitation to momentum, and fear into fuel. But understand this, choosing to change is not a one-time decision. It is a daily recommitment, a daily battle with old habits and old patterns that will try to pull you back into who you used to be, because your old identity will not leave quietly. It will fight to survive. It will whisper excuses. It will remind you of insecurities. But your job is to resist. Your job is to continue shaping the new version of yourself through consistent action, through discipline, through conscious choices that align with the future you want to live. And day by day, as you continue this process, the shift becomes permanent, the change becomes real, and your story begins writing itself, not because life magically gifted you something better, but because you finally decided to show up as someone better. And that single decision becomes the foundation of your defining chapter, the chapter where you stop being controlled by your past and start being guided by your potential, the chapter where you stop waiting for change and start becoming the cause of it, because your story has always been in your hands. It was just waiting for you to take control. You must choose discipline over emotion, because emotions are fleeting, unpredictable, constantly shifting with your mood, your environment, your energy, and your circumstances. But discipline is steady, intentional, and built on a commitment that does not break just because you feel tired, unmotivated, or overwhelmed. And the truth is, every great transformation in life is born not from moments of excitement, but from the days you choose to act even when you don't feel like it, even when every part of you wants to procrastinate, run, hide, or take the easier path, because the easier path has never created a stronger version of you. Emotions are powerful. They can inspire you. They can motivate you. They can push you forward, but they can also trap you. They can distract you. They can convince you that comfort is more valuable than progress. And if you allow emotions to dictate your actions, you will live a life defined by inconsistency, because emotions fluctuate every single day, and no long-term dream can survive when the foundation beneath it keeps shifting. But discipline remains. Discipline holds the line. Discipline pushes you through the noise in your mind and keeps you moving toward the person you want to become. You cannot wait for the perfect emotional state to begin your journey. You cannot wait until you feel strong, confident, inspired, or ready, because if readiness was required, no one would ever start anything meaningful. And the people who rise, the people who build, the people who become unstoppable are not the ones who always feel motivated. They are the ones who act in the absence of motivation. They are the ones who understand that doing the work is not optional. It's necessary. When you choose discipline, you take control of your life. Instead of letting your temporary feelings control you, you train your mind to follow your intentions not your impulses. And that is where real power begins. Because once your mind learns that excuses no longer work on you, everything changes, your habits change, your confidence changes, your consistency changes. And with consistency, your life begins shifting in ways you once believed were impossible. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect. It is the highest form of self-love. It is you telling yourself that your future matters more than your momentary comfort. It is you proving that the vision you carry inside you is worth the effort, the sweat, the discomfort, and the sacrifices required to bring it to light. And the more you practice discipline, the stronger it becomes, the more natural it feels, the more your identity shifts into someone who follows through, someone who keeps promises to themselves, someone who doesn't quit when things get hard. And yes, the journey will be uncomfortable. Yes, you will face days where your mind tries to convince you to stop, to slow down, to give up, because your old habits do not disappear quietly, that your most fight to survive will try to pull you back into patterns of laziness, doubt, fear, and procrastination. But this is where discipline must rise. This is where you remind yourself of the life you want, the future you are building, the strength you are developing. And each time you push through that resistance, you become more powerful than you were the day before. Over time, discipline rewires your identity. It shifts your belief system. It creates momentum, and momentum becomes the force that carries you forward even when life gets difficult. And as you continue choosing discipline over emotion, you will notice something profound happening. Your emotions begin to align with your actions. Your motivation begins to increase naturally. Your confidence grows, and that the struggle that once felt impossible begins to feel normal, manageable, and eventually easy because you've trained yourself to rise above your impulses. And this is the truth most people never understand. Discipline creates freedom from regret, freedom from self-doubt, freedom from the chaos of inconsistent effort. And when you live with that kind of freedom, your future becomes unstoppable because your life is no longer controlled by how you feel in the moment, but by who you have decided to become. And once you make that decision, once discipline becomes your default, your defining chapter begins to unfold in a way that transforms everything. Your future self is begging you to start, because every day you delay, every hour you waste, every excuse you protect becomes a weight that your future self will have to carry, a burden that grows heavier with time. And the truth is, the version of you 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or even 6 months from now is shaped entirely by the decisions you make today, not the dreams you talk about, not the plans you imagine, but the actions you choose to take or the actions you choose to avoid. And the more you postpone your growth, the more you feed your own regret. There is a version of you waiting on the other side of discipline, waiting on the other side of courage, waiting on the other side of consistent action of you that is stronger, sharper, wiser, more focused, and far more capable than the person you are right now. But that version cannot exist unless you take that uncomfortable first step, unless you stop convincing yourself that tomorrow will be easier, because tomorrow is not easier. Tomorrow is only the place where dreams go to die when people keep postponing their potential. Your future self is silently watching every choice you make today, and the most painful truth is that the future version of you cannot come back to warn you, cannot come back to push you, cannot come back to guide you. But if they could, they would beg you to stop waiting. They would beg you to stop underestimating your abilities. They would beg you to take your goals seriously, because they are living with the consequences of your decisions. They either inherit the life you built with courage, or the life you wasted with hesitation. The life you want will not magically arrive. It will not walk up to you and introduce itself. It must be created, crafted, constructed step by step, habit by habit, choice by choice. And while you are waiting for the perfect moment, waiting to feel ready, waiting for the fear to disappear, time is quietly passing, opportunities are slipping through your fingers, and your future self is being pushed further away. Starting doesn't mean you need to know everything. Starting doesn't mean you won't feel doubt. Start doesn't mean the path will suddenly feel simple. Starting simply means you care enough about your future to stop letting fear and excuses shape your destiny, because your dream life requires action, not intention, commitment, not convenience, effort, not just enthusiasm during emotional highs. And yes, beginning is uncomfortable, awkward. Beginning exposes your weaknesses, your insecurities, and your lack of experience. But that is exactly why beginning is powerful, because starting forces you to grow. Starting says you improve. Starting forces you to become someone capable of handling the bigger dreams you carry. And without starting, that growth can never happen. Too many people wait for the stars to align, for confidence to appear, for motivation to last, but nothing about the future rewards those who wait. It only rewards those who move, those who show up, those who decide that progress is more important than pride, and that action is more important than perfection, because perfect conditions will never arrive, but progress will always come to those who begin. And understand this deeply. Your future self does not need you to be perfect. They do not need you to have everything figured out. They simply need you to try. They need you to take the first step, because once you start, momentum begins to build, clarity begins to grow, a confidence begins to rise, and the path that once looked impossible begins to reveal itself one small step at a time. The gap between the life you have and if you want is nothing more than the distance between I will start someday, I start today, and a moment you choose today, the moment you choose action, the moment you choose to move even with fear in your chest and doubt in your mind is the moment your future self takes a deep breath of relief, because they finally know you are fighting for them. They finally know that you care, and they finally know that the life they dream of is no longer slipping away. It is beginning right now. Pressure is not your enemy. It is your training ground, the place where your potential is shaped, strengthened. And the truth is, the moments when life feels heavy, overwhelming, and uncomfortable are the exact moments that are carving strength into your character, because without pressure, you would never grow. You would never be forced to confront your weaknesses. You would never learn how powerful you truly are. And most people spend their lives running from pressure, avoiding challenges, escaping discomfort, not realizing that they're running away from the very experiences that could turn them into the strong version of themselves. Pressure exposes you. It reveals your fears, your insecurities, your doubts, and your unpreparedness, but that exposure is necessary, because you cannot fix what you refuse to face. You cannot improve what you pretend doesn't exist. And the more you embrace pressure instead of avoiding it, the more you will discover that the breaking points you are terrified of are actually the building points of your future strength. The moments that feel like they are crushing you are the very moments that are shaping you, giving you the resilience you will need for the next chapter of your life. Every champion, every leader, every person who's ever achieved something extraordinary has walked the pressures. They have faced moments that tested their limits, moments pushed them to forced them to question everything, but instead of folding, they leaned in, they accepted that pressure was part of the process. They understood that greatness is not built in comfort, but in resistance and struggle, in friction, and in the quiet moments when no one is watching but the world inside you is screaming for you to quit. Pressure is not your enemy. It is your training ground, the place where your potential is shaped, strengthened. And the truth is, the moments when life feels heavy, overwhelming, and uncomfortable are the exact moments that are carving strength into your character, because without pressure, you would never grow. You would never be forced to confront your weaknesses. You would never learn how powerful you truly are. And most people spend their lives running from pressure, avoiding challenges, escaping discomfort, not realizing that they're running away from the very experiences that could turn them into the strong version of themselves. Pressure exposes you. It reveals your fears, your insecurities, your doubts, and your unpreparedness, but that exposure is necessary, because you cannot fix what you refuse to face. You cannot improve what you pretend doesn't exist. And the more you embrace pressure instead of avoiding it, the more you will discover that the breaking points you are terrified of are actually the building points of your future strength. The moments that feel like they are crushing you are the very moments that are shaping you, giving you the resilience you will need for the next chapter of your life. Every champion, every leader, every person who's ever achieved something extraordinary has walked the pressures. They have faced moments that tested their limits, moments pushed them to forced them to question everything, but instead of folding, they leaned in, they accepted that pressure was part of the process. They understood that greatness is not built in comfort, but in resistance and struggle, in friction, and in the quiet moments when no one is watching but the world inside you is screaming for you to quit. The truth is, pressure and purpose always travel together. If your dreams are big, your challenges will be big. If your goals are high, your obstacles will be high. And if you want to live a life as meaningful, powerful, and impactful, you must accept that pressure is the cost of evolution, the entry fee for greatness, and the marking of a path that only the committed are willing to walk. And one day you will look back at the moments that felt like they were breaking you, and you will realize they were building you. You will realize that those seasons of pressure were the exact seasons that strengthened your mindset, sharpened your discipline, deepened your gratitude, and expanded your capacity far beyond anything you thought was possible. And when you reach that point, you will no longer fear pressure. You will respect it. You will welcome it, because you will know that the life you are living now was forged in the moments where you refused to run, where you stood tall, and then where you embraced the pressure that ultimately shaped your greatness. Identity must shift before success can arrive, because every action you take, every habit you practice, every decision you make is rooted in who you believe you are. And if you continue to see through the lens of your past, your failures, your insecurities, and your old patterns, you will continue to repeat the same cycles again and again. And the truth is, no matter how badly you want to change your life, nothing will transform until you change the internal story that shapes your behavior, because identity is the silent force that controls everything you do. Same mindset, the same new mindset, a mindset created their old life. They try to reach new levels while holding on to the identity that kept them stuck, and they wonder why why progress feels impossible, why motivation, why discipline never lasts. But the answer is simple. You cannot build a new reality from an outdated version of yourself. You cannot expect extraordinary results while operating ordinary beliefs. And until you redefine who you are at your core, you will always sabotage your own growth without even realizing it. Identity is powerful because once you believe something about yourself, your brain works overtime to, if true, are inconsistent. If you believe you act instant, you will act inconsistently. If you believe you are not smart enough, you will avoid challenges that require intelligence. If you believe you always fail. You will stop trying the moment things difficult because your actions will always align with who you think you are. Even when that identity is limiting you, even when it is outdated, even when it no longer matches the person you want to become. But the moment you decide to step into a new identity, everything begins to shift. When you begin telling yourself, I am disciplined, you start acting like someone who follows through. When you say, I am capable, you begin taking on challenges you once avoided. When you affirm, I am becoming the strongest version of myself, you start making decisions that support the transformation because identity shapes your beliefs. Beliefs shape your actions and actions shape your destiny. Shifting your identity does not require perfect conditions. It does not require waiting for success to arrive first. It requires a conscious decision to rewrite the narrative you have been living under, to let go of the labels people placed on you, to release the limitations you accept from your past, and to redefine yourself based on who you are becoming, not who you used to be, because the story you tell yourself becomes the life you experience. And if you can telling a story that keeps you small, your life will remain small. When you step into a new identity, you become aligned of your goals, and instead of working against them, you no longer have to fight yourself to take action. You no longer battle constant resistance within your mind because your actions begin to feel natural, automatic, and aligned with the future you are building. And this is the secret most people never understand. Success becomes easier when your identity matches your goals, and failure becomes inevitable when your identity contradicts your desires. You are one decision away from a completely different life, and that truth is far more powerful than most people ever realize, because it means your entire future is not built on luck, not built on timing, not built on someone choosing you. It is built on a single moment of clarity where you finally decide that enough is enough, a single moment where you commit to becoming the person you were meant to be, and one decision, one internal shift, one bold choice can rid the entire direction of your life, because every major transformation begins with a moment you refuse to stay the same. Most people underestimate the power of a decision. They think change has to be massive, dramatic, complicated, or overwhelming, but life doesn't transform through chaos. It transforms through clarity, through brain tension, through one brave choice that disrupts your old pattern and forces your story onto a new path. And the reason so many people stay stuck is not because they lack potential, but because they never make the one decision that would set their transformation in motion. The life you want is not far away. It is not unreachable. It is not reserved for someone else. It is way just beyond decision. You keep delaying the decision to finally stop negotiating with your excuses. And the moment you decide to act, everything around you begins to shift, not instantly, not magically, but permanently, because your decision changes your direction, and your direction changes your destiny. One decision can end a bad habit. One decision can begin a new chapter. One decision can push you toward the dream you've been avoiding out of fear. And the truth is, your life is a reflection of the decisions you repeatedly make. And if you keep choosing comfort, you will build a comfortable but unfulfilled future. But if you choose growth, even when it scares you, even when it challenges, even it demands more of you, you will build a future that expands you, strengthens you, and transforms you. The problem is people wait for certainty before they decide. They wait for confidence. They wait for perfect timing. They wait for fear to disappear. But that day never comes, because clarity does not arrive before the decision. Clarity arrives because of the decision, and confidence does not appear before action. Confidence is created through action, and waiting for the right moment is the fastest way to let your dreams die slowly while time moves forward without you. One decision can break generational cycles. One decision can elevate your standards. One decision can shift your identity, because when you decide to become someone different, your actions begin to align with that new identity. And once your actions change, your results change. And once your results change, your entire life changes. It's a chain reaction that begins with one moment of courage. And yes, making that decision will be uncomfortable. It will feel risky. It will feel uncertain, because every meaningful decision demands that you let go of something familiar, whether it's an old mindset, an old habit, an old relationship, or an old version of yourself. But staying the same will cost you far more than change ever will, because staying the same guarantees regret, guarantees stagnation, guarantees that your future will look just like your past. The moment you decide that your future matters more than your fears, more than your excuses, more than your doubts, you take control of your life in a way that few people ever do. And while others sit on the sidelines waiting for permission, waiting for motivation, waiting for the universe to guide them, you will already be building, evolving, because your decision placed you in motion while everyone else was still frozen. And someday you will look back and realize that your entire life pivoted because of one single choice, one moment of bravery, one decision that changed everything, because change doesn't begin with mastery, and it begins with a decision. And the moment you make it, your defining chapter begins, your momentum starts, and your future shifts into alignment with the person you were always capable of becoming. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must stop running from their truth and start walking toward the version of themselves they are meant to become. And this moment rarely arrives with fireworks or loud announcements. Instead, it comes quietly, disguised as discomfort, as restlessness, as a whisper inside your mind telling you that our living is too small for the potential that lives within you. And when that whisper becomes impossible to ignore, that is when your defining chapter begins, because this chapter is never about external victories alone. It is about the internal war you choose to win, the doubts you choose silence, the fears you choose to silence, the fear you choose to confront, and the identity you choose to transform in the direction of your highest possibilities. In this chapter, you finally realize that change never comes from waiting for the perfect moment. It comes from taking ownership of your decisions long before the path becomes clear. It comes from deciding that your past mistakes will no longer be chains that hold you down, but lessons that lift you up. It comes from choosing self-respect over excuses, actions over hesitation, and purpose over comfort. And the powerful truth is that your defining chapter starts the moment when decide the life you want is worth the discomfort required to build it, because nothing great is created in a straight line, nothing meaningful is achieved without struggle, and nothing extraordinary becomes your reality unless you are willing to push through the resist that tries to keep you ordinary. This chapter demands courage, the kind of courage that forces you to be brutally honest with yourself, the courage to admit what is not working, the courage to walk away from what drains you, the courage to rebuild where something has been broken, and the courage to bet on yourself even when no one else can see the vision you hold inside your mind, because the truth is simple. No one is coming to save you. No one is coming to do the work for you, and no one will care about your dreams as much as you do. And that is why this chapter is yours alone, shaped by the choices you make daily, by the standards you raise for yourself, and by the discipline you practice when no one is watching. As you step deeper into this chapter, you begin to understand that the world does not reward potential. It rewards execution. It rewards consistency. It rewards the quiet discipline of showing up even when motivation dies. It rewards the relentless commitment of someone who refuses to break under pressure, someone who understands that struggle is not a sign to quit, but the doorway to growth, someone who chooses to rise after every failure because they know that the pain of growth is far smaller than regret of never trying. Your defining chapter is not written in the moments when life feels easy. It is written when you feel overwhelmed, but still take the next step, when you feel afraid, but still lean forward, when you feel lost, but still choose direction, when you feel tired, but still keep moving. And every one of those steps, even the shaky ones, E-ones, are shaping you into someone stronger, braver, wiser, and more unstoppable than the person you were yesterday. And that is the beauty of this chap. It is not about perfection. It's not evolution. It is about becoming the kind of person who does not just dream about a powerful future, but builds one with their own hands, one decision at a time, one small win at a time, one disciplined action at a time, until the world can no longer deny the strength of the person you have become. As this chapter comes into focus, understand this clearly. Your life does not change when circumstances improve. It changes when you decide to improve, and that decision is the turning point. You are in who you are and who you are becoming. Everything you have heard, every idea you have absorbed, every truth that challenged you was never meant to inspire you for a moment. It was meant to awaken you for a lifetime. This is not about motivation that fades. This is about a standard, a mindset that endures, and a commitment that refuses to break under pressure. Your defining chapter is not written in comfort. It is written discipline and sacrifice. In the moments when quitting feels easier, but you choose to continue. It is written when no one is watching, when applause is absent, when progress feels slow, yet you keep moving forward anyway. That is where real transformation happens. That is where identity is forged. And that is where ordinary people become extraordinary through consistency and courage. You have carried out fear and hesitation long enough. Now is the moment to put them down and step into responsibility, because responsibility is power, and power comes from owning your choices fully. The past no longer gets to vote. Excuses no longer get to speak, and fear no longer gets to decide your direction. And what happens next depends on what you do now, not tomorrow, not someday, not when things feel easier, but right now in this moment. So walk forward with intention, raise your standards, honor your protective focus, and commit to becoming someone you respect. Let this be the chapter where you stop surviving and start building, where you stop reacting, start leading, where you stop waiting and start becoming. This is not the end of a speech. It is the beginning of your action, beginning your ownership, and the beginning of a life you no longer run from. This is your defining chapter, and the world will feel its impact when you decide to live it fully.